Good evening. Today is Thursday, September the 5th, 2019. I now call this Board of Education work session to order. Mrs. Lane, will you call the roll, please?
Mr. Begley?
Here.
Mr. Birding?
Present.
Mrs. Gundrum? Mrs. O'Neill? Here. Mrs. Shorter?
Would you please all stand for the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, the first item on the agenda today is presentations and resolutions. Mr. Smith?
Thank you, Mr. Birding, and members of the board. We do have one presentation scheduled this evening. This time, I'll turn it over to Joe Penny. He will be providing us with an overview of building usage in our school district.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Smith. Good evening. This evening I will be providing an overview of how our facilities are used by outside groups and provide information about planned improvements. I'll say this first and foremost, our facilities are used for the benefit of our students. That comes first before any outside group with facility use. Our policy does strongly cater to community use though, especially for events that are student-centered. I will be highlighting the following areas through this presentation: category and group designations, facility use by category/group, facility use by facility, total receipts, and then planned improvements we have for the process. Our facility use policy is broken into multiple categories. The regulations within the policy speak to cost of rental based on factors such as the day of the week and time of the event based on the group. Groups range from internal use, which is your group 1, all the way through non-student related public groups, which are group 3. The charts that's included on this slide, it's a breakdown of the 2017-18 year and 2018-19 year and our number of events per group type. So group 1 use of our facilities is by far the most common use we have. It's internal meetings during the day, after school events, athletics, clubs, and so forth. That is not something that, records are not typically kept at district office for group 1 events because of how frequent scheduling is and because we're currently a paper-based system. So it's handled at the building level. Since I found out that I was going to do this presentation in the summer, I didn't want to contact the buildings as they were starting up school and ask them to try to compile all that information for the group 1 event, so I do not have that information for you this evening. But I do have the information from group 2A, which does go all the way through the business office through group 3. One thing I'd like to point out on this slide is group 2B, which you may know these groups already or you might have to go back and forth on your presentation, but there's a lot higher number on, actually let me say group 2A, there was a lot, I'm trying to read, I apologize, group 2B, there was a higher number in 2017-18 and you'll notice that dropped during 2018-19. That's the area that has the non-profit profit designation, and this year we more thoroughly reviewed the nonprofits and made sure that they provided nonprofit status proof. And then also with all these numbers from year to year, it depends on if there's a need for the group to use a facility, if there's all kinds of variables to go in these numbers that you can draw assumptions off of. Going to the next slide. Events by facility. So we took the last 2 years and compiled this data, and this slide shows a breakdown of events based on the facility. As with the last slide, group 1 events are not included, except there are a few events that were submitted to the district office and that did fall in with this data. So numbers will be a tad different if you do exact counts between the prior slide and this slide, because there was some that came through that fed into these numbers. So I made sure I just denoted that on there. And On the right side, I've also included the total receipts for the last 2 years. So this year, we did pull in more revenue or more receipts based on our facility use. But based on those numbers, one thing that I did strongly notice is we are a very community-centered facility use program. And our Group 3 or our financial, I guess, gain through our facilities, we do have money coming in, obviously, as shown. But we do cater to, as I said, the community for the most part. So, moving on to planned improvements. Over the past year, we have been evaluating how we can improve our process. We have come to the conclusion that moving to an online system will accomplish our goals. We also believe that streamlining the process workflow is crucial for improvement, and I'll show that on the next slide. But in regards to online facility request system, this would allow people that are looking to use a facility, whether it's internal or external, to be able to complete an online application, and then it would submit in. So it's going to simplify the application process greatly. We're going to shorten approval times within the process, reduce staff focus and time, which is crucial because we really want to try to take as much work and time out of the building offices or facilities so they can focus on building operations as much as possible, because we definitely need them there, and that's where our students are. And then real-time communication, so that way when things are submitted, there can be an approval workflow, and there can even be concurrent work being done, which I'll show on the next slide. And then also event information, accessibility, and reporting. So that way we can look at trends in data, and we can also have a better grasp on what's going on within this facility use program. So I included the flow chart that I created for the planned improvement on the process, and I won't go through each step of this, but ultimately this slide shows the proposed workflow, which allows for both the business office and the facility to process requests simultaneous with electronic approvals. Currently what happens is it's all linear, and there will be a paper request come in, it goes to the facility, whether it's, let's say, the high school, it'll go to the high school, and then the steps have to be followed. For instance, the ones in red up there have to be followed. Then it will be, if it gets through those steps, then it will come to the business office, and then we review those steps. And then once it's all said and done, I sign off for approval as superintendent designee, and then communication goes back to the building and the person or the organization saying, you are approved, you can use this facility. What we're going to try to do is, we're going to have it with the electronic workflow, the minute an event is submitted, we'll be able to have the office or the request facility notified, as well as the business office. And the business office can handle the business end of things, for instance, the group designation as far as policy interpretation, as well as the insurance that's required for groups to use. Currently, the building level is looking at these things initially, they get it all collected up, and then they send it up our direction. I understand that this is going to add a little bit more load to the business office, but at the same time, because of the confusion, I believe that this is going to definitely pay off in the long run, and it's going to free up that office time at the building levels, which is our target always in district offices, try to see if we can relieve their issues, so that way they can have more access to do what they need to do down there with the students. So. And in closing, in regards to the slides, we'll be updating the policy and regulations this year as part of our planned improvements. So we'll look at the policy and regulations. There are many that go along with this, because facility use is fairly detailed and complex. There will be form conversion and update, because moving from our old conventional form to an online form, there will be some caveats that things will have to change around. The end goal will still be the same. And then rate analysis. We're due for a rate analysis to make sure our rates are competitive and appropriate for 2019 going into 2020. That concludes this presentation. I'd like to open it up to any questions or discussion.
I have a question.
Yes.
First of all, this is great. I think I could fill out those building use forms in my sleep. I filled out so many of them, and it doesn't make sense why they're not on the, and it's great. It's great, great, great. Is there any plans to do something similar with like transportation requests? Because that's pretty paper-focused as well, I believe.
Not at this time,
Okay.
but there
There
always a
aren't plans at this
possibility in the
time?
future.
Okay. Would this be a system that, like, that could be used for that?
We have another system we could potentially leverage for that.
Okay.
This system is really focused on facilities
Okay.
because it has a front end to it that directly caters to the complexities of facility use.
Okay, it's great. Much needed. Thank you.
Yeah, I really had no idea that the elementary schools were used as often as they were. But what I'm hearing you say is we want to continue to be a good community partner and offer these facilities, but let's streamline the process, tighten it up, make it more efficient for everyone. So I think that's great. Thanks.
This was great information. I don't think that, as far as I was concerned, I needed the information as far as like what sports teams are using the facilities, our own varsity basketball team, or what have you. I mean, how is more or less, how is the community using the facilities? And this is great information, and I appreciate it very much. Any questions for Mr. Penny?
Catching up. So this system is basically going to be a system for groups inside of the school as well as outside.
I think I heard you.
There you go.
Okay. No, the only thing that I asked was just so that I can get caught up. This is basically for groups inside of the school or inside of the district as well as outside. So we're about to use the same process, is that right?
It's 100% for the outside groups.
Outside,
For the
okay.
inside groups, I've talked to principals and facilities. The one thing I'm always very cautious about is trying, if they have a great solution in place for their internal, is trying to, from the district office, force something in. Usually we can have the culture evolve if it's a good solution, and it might be a situation where we start 100% internal using it, or maybe if a building is a little less than comfortable, saying we're really comfortable in our process. The one thing that, depending on the building, the one thing that I've talked to multiple companies about this, but the company that we're really looking at, they have an option to be able to export the events that are coming out and do imports. So the key is being able to take and have the information feed so there's not multiple spaces where there's updates. The goal is to have the facility request, facility use all in the same place on the same system, because that will allow us to look at our data and then we can make decisions based on that data. So the one other thing I'll throw in regards to the scheduling is the system we're looking at does hook up with Arbiter, which is our athletic programming. So what is put in by the athletic office will also feed this system, and that will be very helpful.
And so there's like a calendar or something? Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
Great, great.
All right, thank you very much.
You're welcome.